right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thank you all for joining me today. My name is Sonara Marsh. I am the manager of our technical product marketing team here within the security business unit of VMware. And today we're going to be discussing the Anywhere Workforce, or securing the distributed workforce through the lens of VMware Carbon Black. Now, when we begin to have this conversation, it's important to understand that it's a larger shift than what we've witnessed in just the last 12 to 18 months, right? We've gone from adjusting to a remote work scenario to becoming the Anywhere organization where employees have the freedom to stay productive and work from wherever they need to, right? Whether that's home or if they're traveling. And securing the distributed edge, if we focus in on that in particular, it's not just about this remote workforce. It's your security operations center, your applications, and your IT services. They are all distributed just the same way that your employees are. And this acceleration of this longer-term trend of the Anywhere workforce used to be more pervasive in certain industries and verticals, but we've really seen that the pandemic has leveled this globally, and this is that new normal that we are all accepting. And so what we know to be true is that it doesn't necessarily have a defined perimeter. And organizations for decades have been investing and setting up security that relied on that known perimeter, with an inherent belief that all applications, users, and devices inside that network were trustworthy, and resources outside of that network were not. Now, as we have changed and accelerated this pace of adoptions, we are all outside of that perimeter, and it's important to understand that traditional security solutions just were not designed for these realities. It can hinder efficacy, efficiency, uniform mitigation of risk across your enterprise assets. And it can lead to those different unique security challenges that span across different teams and tools. Now, the critical piece of this conversation is not limited to, but I think really needs to include, the security of your virtual infrastructure. As we have all distributed, VDI has been a critical point of empowerment, right? It can enhance mobility, increase security to ensure that there is remote access to mission-critical applications while not storing that data locally. Now, the typical consideration for virtual assets and security of virtual assets is centered around performance, uptime, utilization, because that is what VDI is meant for, right? We need to make sure that we are not impacting any sort of utilization and we are optimizing uptime and performance. But that does not mean it should be in place of increased efficacy, right? Because VDI is not impervious to threats. It can still suffer from a stolen password or a compromised user desktop session, where it can expose the organization to security threats such as ransomware, malware, and insider threats. Securing your endpoints in VDI in a fragmented manner will only increase your attack surface and lead to unreliable security exposure on your assets, which is not only ineffective, but can lead to suboptimal experiences, operational complexity for users and administrators alike. So what is our vision here, right? We talked about bringing this together under the context of, or the lens of, Carbon Black. But the important thing to understand is that we span beyond just what we are doing in-house here. There is a vision for VMware security, built-in, simple, fast. We need to start taking access or leveraging the 5 critical control points that VMware has access to. We've got workloads, endpoints, user access, network, as well as cloud and applications here. So what we want to start envisioning is, how do we pull all of these control points together to provide a uniform experience that will eliminate fragmented security and start leading to VMware on VMware, right? If VMware owns the infrastructure, we want to be able to secure it in the best way possible, ensuring that we are increasing your overall efficacy and minimizing your exposure. The vision here is ensuring that we are doing it simpler, faster, and in a smarter manner than we have seen it before. Right? It's important to connect those different control points, make sure we have that contextual information, using situational intelligence to make better decisions, and doing it in a simpler manner, as we say here. So considerations for the distributed edge, the anywhere workforce, however we're calling it today, we need to start looking at how these control points start to come together, right? We need to take into key considerations for user. If the employees are operating outside of the network perimeter, we need to be able to establish trust through their credentials, so we can minimize threats by authenticating users based on their risk profile. When it pertains to the devices themselves need to be trusted for compliance. And organizations need to have the ability to detect, protect, and respond to adversarial threats in near real time. From the network perspective, even when users and devices are verified, all traffic traversing over the network must be protected. Organizations can achieve this by implementing network security controls to ensure secure remote access to all applications. Finally, if we work our way to the workload and applications, it is important to protect our workloads and applications through things like hardening with vulnerability assessment, app integrity checks. This is ensuring that all of these other checks have passed. Now let's ensure that these applications are behaving and maintaining the state that we need them to. Now, the lens of Carbon Black, I feel like the conversation gets challenging because each time we start one of these campaigns, we need to start honing in on, well, what exactly does this mean from each of these lenses? And as we want to bring together connected control points, what it's important to understand from a security perspective is that in every aspect, all of the infrastructure that we're looking to secure, we want to be able to provide three core things. We want to be able to identify risk, whether that's through vulnerability assessment, building baselines, or looking for additional context that could lead to overexposure. We need to enable you, empower you to identify risk. Then we want to be able to prevent the attack, right? Should be plan A, right? We need to stop the adversary from getting access to our environment if they're doing something nefarious. So once we harden our assets, we want to be able to block and replace things like antivirus, be able to go beyond antivirus protection, and stop things like non-malware and ransomware attacks. And then finally, no good solution has a plan A without a plan B. We also want to provide the adequate level of visibility to detect and respond to any adversarial scenario, especially considering that we are starting to see security operations centers be remote. We need that level of visibility to ensure they understand the full picture and can bring this full life cycle back, right? Then identify a root cause and prevent it from future threats here. So we deliver key value in each of these areas. I'm going to go ahead and pivot into the demonstration, and we will wrap up with a few more slides just to bring everything all together so that you understand what you're seeing today from a Carbon Black perspective. All right, excellent. So let's go ahead and pivot over to my desktop here. I'm going to leverage Horizon to access my machine here for the demonstration. Logging in real quickly. I'm going to get access to all of my different machines that I administer. Specifically, I will log into my administrative jump box so that we can leverage my testing host here. Now, as we load up this system, what is key in securing remote workers is the ability to remain lightweight, opposed to traditional solutions which rely on scans to identify known bad in your environment. Now, what you will see here on the right-hand side is I will keep this task manager up. So you will see our Carbon Black services. We're running at about 0% or less than 1% CPU utilization at this point in time. Now, the key is that when we start to block attacks, this is where traditional antivirus solutions and other solutions will start to spike on that utilization because they are not optimized to run in virtual infrastructure. If an adversary were to gain access to your environment, whether that be through a spear phishing campaign or otherwise, What we want to be able to do here is we want to pretend we are that end user. I want to open up this attack, and what we are going to see in the bottom right-hand corner is that this threat was blocked. Now that's cloud reputation, right? Cloud reputation is not limited to signature identification alone. There's also machine learning algorithms to statically analyze payloads and block them if they are known bad viruses, even with the hash value being changed. Now, traditional security for virtualized environments typically required additional infrastructure to offload and support these malware scans. But not only was this increasing management efforts, it also limits these products to signature prevention. Well, what happens if an adversary bypasses that initial access campaign or technique and wants to start leveraging or deploying more advanced attack scenarios? If we know anything to be true about adversaries is that they love built-in tools. We have seen in the past several years that one of the top MITRE TIDs that gets leveraged is scripting or PowerShell usage. And so in this case, I'm going to leverage the APT29 simulator. This is something that's very popular with adversaries as well as different testing scenarios. And I'm choosing this because I have the ability to execute through PowerShell a trusted binary, an encoded command line which is going to attempt to scrape credentials through Mimikatz here. I'm going to go ahead and attack. We'll use the variant flag of number 2 so that we encode this command line so that it's more challenging to identify. We will then see that this instantly gets killed out on that shell session. In the bottom right-hand corner, we can see that PowerShell and application was restricted. Again, low management overhead. We are intending to maintain that less than 1% CPU utilization, even in the behavioral identifiers, which start to use more advanced analytics, which traditional AV solutions are unable to do. Now the final stage, let's say that they get past our behavioral components, they're using PowerShell for nefarious activity, or even maybe they are blending in. Our entire functionality or our prevention capabilities wants to be delivered in layers. It's not just cloud reputation, it's not just behaviors and machine learning and AI. We also need to deploy additional ransomware protections through things like decoy or canary files, protecting the master boot record, volume shadow copies. So in this case, I'm going to deploy or execute ryuk.ps1 here. Now this is important because ryuk is something that a ransomware campaign that was highly destructive within environments. And so what we want to simulate here, or what we want to run against, we will run this. Is what happens when we attempt to execute this campaign. Notice that it's embedded in PowerShell, so we do not actually recognize this as a known virus. Rather, we are restricting this based on the identification of malicious script or malicious intent. Choosing a solution to secure your virtual desktops should not be at the cost of security efficacy. Right? We want to focus in on performance, make sure that we are optimal here so that in any stage of an attack, we are still maintaining that low utilization on those systems. And one of the key things that we mentioned here is your workers are remote, but so is your security operations center. So while running and blocking these attacks and increasing that efficacy is important, we also need to ensure that your security operations center has the adequate level of visibility to detect, protect, and respond against adversarial scenarios. So pivoting into the Carbon Black console, again, this is cloud hosted, no additional infrastructure required. What we are going to see is a general trend of our alerts. We can see vulnerabilities on our virtual systems as well as our physical systems. We can also start to take a look at what is being prevented within our organization. But keying in specifically on the alerts that have been surfaced today, what we want to start looking at is, okay, we see a detected virus was running, a deny action was taken. What does that actually look like? Is there anything further for my administrator to actually investigate here? Opening this up, what we will be exposed to is a visual depiction of this process analysis tree. So we'll be able to see from point A to point B, what did the adversary do in our environment? So the first campaign we opened up was a spear phishing campaign. We blocked this based on signature or reputation. We can see that being noted here. We can also verify that through VirusTotal by a single click on lookup in VirusTotal, and that will bring us over to be able to assess against all antivirus vendors who is detecting that as malicious and who is not. So even in the case where you are using one of these AV vendors, you are not at the mercy of their ability to identify or unidentify or not identify this as a virus, right? We're using intelligence. We want to be able to identify and block known signatures from executing in your environment. Now, the second thing that we did, right, you and I know because we showed the console or showed the system locally, but for an administrator, what they don't know is what happened. So clicking through the different nodes in the process, we will be exposed to that encoded command line that we ran locally. The important thing here is that if we are speeding up time to resolution by giving the SOC team this visibility, we want to continue to increase time to resolution anywhere possible by delivering additional features right into the base of our product. One of the examples of this is our PowerShell reveal functionality, where we can take this encoded command line, run locally, decrypt and decode it in the fly in the console so that our administrator can save time and understand the true intent of this adversary. We can see the invoke Mimikatz PowerShell script being called to attempting to dump credentials, but we can also see that a terminate policy action has been applied on this system. Now, in the third and final step of attacking the system, what we did is we leveraged Ryuk embedded in a PowerShell script so we can start to simulate in a trusted binary. What does a zero-day attack instance look like? How can it be detrimental to our environment? And what we're going to notice is that this is highlighted as a separate alert because there is no run indicator associated with this particular threat. This is because our zero-touch prevention and detection mechanism was deployed to be able to protect against this threat scenario. Now, this is empowered through our AMSI scripting prevention, which has been very key for our customers in terms of reducing the overall management overhead of staying on that cutting edge. So in situations like SolarWinds, our threat research team has been able to deploy high confidence prevention mechanisms to our entire enterprises without any interaction from them so that we can start giving them the capability to block against these known bad threats. Now, delivering this increased efficacy is something that is critical, right? Deploying multiple different layers, making sure that it is not at the expense of your performance on your virtual systems. We also want to ensure that we are optimizing how we deploy and how we identify things like risk within the environment. So while we can do this through the console, looking at different vulnerabilities that are identified on our assets, we also have the capability to do this through vSphere. In vSphere, we have a native integration, being that we are a part of VMware. There is now a Carbon Black feature where you can actually go in and assess all of the different assets you currently have, which ones are currently enabled or not enabled from a security perspective, and also deep diving into the vulnerabilities that we saw in the Carbon Black console. So whether you are a vAdmin or you're a security administrator, we are bringing the relevant information to you, making sure that we are giving you the adequate level of visibility to detect, protect, and respond to adversarial threats, while ensuring that this is not at the expense of your virtual performance here. All right, now pivoting back into the presentation here to wrap it up and take it home. What I really want to emphasize is that in the demonstration today, we want to get across the point that whether you're securing virtual desktops or physical endpoints, there's key advantages to be leveraging VMware security. Now, I talked a lot or referenced a lot virtual desktops just because I think that there are key advantages here, right? We have fully instrumented hardening, prevention, detection, and response. We saw a lot of the cases around prevention today, tidbits of some of the other components, but it's key that we are providing multiple different layers of protection on those virtual desktops, and it is not to the detriment of your performance. I do want to skip to the last point because I believe that this is because of our built-in end-to-end testing with the Horizon engineering team. Anytime there is a hotfix, a patch, a new deployment of Horizon or Carbon Black, we go through end-to-end testing where we will test performance with Horizon before and after deploying Carbon Black on both instant clones as well as RDSH servers at scale. It is this type of performance testing that puts us in a unique advantage. We are not testing against a test environment. It is a production environment. It has been scaled up by the Horizon team, and it gives us those unique advantages. The key here is that we really want to ensure we are not creating a brittle environment. We are optimizing for performance, and this is what has led to our ability to support something like secure cloning. We actually recognized that there were different nuances to our deployment, and we needed to create a unique registry key specifically for Carbon Black in order to empower us to support secure cloning. It is these types of advantages that we will get and deliver by managing and securing your assets with VMware Security. Now, what I didn't reference as much in this demonstration today is that integrated piece with Workspace ONE. It is important to understand that the same advantages apply. We have fully instrumented prevention, detection, and response. Exactly what you saw today would apply to those physical endpoints. Where we start to see key integration points with Workspace ONE is in our unified installer. So we can deploy Workspace ONE and Carbon Black as one entity. We can also start getting into security orchestration and automation within Workspace ONE. I think that this is extremely valuable because when we have security conversations around orchestration, it tends to center around how much C-level buy-in you have at your organization will really determine what type of orchestration you can do. But oftentimes what teams are attempting to do is orchestrate the user piece of this. So if Debbie has had 10 alerts saying that there has been malware or ransomware or something suspicious going on her endpoint, in this remote workforce, I do not want Debbie to access certain data that could put our entire organization at risk. And it is this type of orchestration where we combined endpoint workload data with user and identity information from Workspace ONE to make more intelligent decisions and action that appropriately. This workflow is streamlined with that unified installer so that we can make those decisions no matter where that employee is to really empower that remote workforce. Now, bringing it back to the Anywhere Workspace, this is something that is attempting to achieve outcomes through 3 of VMware's leading technologies: Workspace ONE, Carbon Black, and SASE. Now, SASE brings network security and performance management to the forefront, and a unique integration allows customers to benefit from broader, more effective security, highly engaged employees, and overall reduced overhead and costs here. By delivering the VMware Anywhere Workspace solution, we really want to hone in on how we can manage and optimize multimodal employee experiences, secure your distributed edge with full end-to-end solutions, and automate the workspace. Manage those outcomes, not just tasks here. And we've already started this conversation with many of our customers. They're on this journey and we're starting to hear their stories, their pain points, and how it aligns back to the Anywhere Workspace vision. So with that, I hope you got an overview of how VMware Carbon Black plays into the Anywhere Workspace solution. Please follow up with any questions that you may have around VMware Carbon Black.